Marty, what's up?
What's going
Welcome.
on, Dalton? How are you?
We are live podcast recording, uh, Northern Illinois Wrestling Podcast. Yeah, I just wanted to jump on and chat and do this a little live and see how it went. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing it. Awesome. Great day. Beautiful weather still in September. Gonna play golf on Thursday. Try to see if I can rectify all my bad golf this year. But yeah, no, I'm doing awesome.
Yeah.
Looking
So,
forward to some wrestling coming up.
yeah,
Season coming around.
yeah. You just got back out on from vacation.
Well, you can't see that's a word that you can't use when you're retired. We went on a trip. We went to South Dakota and we drove across the state of Iowa on Highway 20, which is kind of cool because Highway 20 goes all the way across the United States. And after like Waterloo, Iowa, it's pretty barren, like looking for truck stops or anything to get food or use the bathroom. But yeah, we had a great time. We went out to the Black Hills and Rapid City and Sioux Falls, and we saw everything. And it was, you don't, I went as a little kid, but man, I have a way more appreciation for it now. It's hard to believe all those things fell into place, governmentally wise, nature wise, and everything. It's mind boggling. It was awesome. I loved it. And I belong like someplace like that because I grew up in the sticks. So I'm just like, it's a perfect spot for me. The best part was there was college football on Saturday. We stopped at an establishment and there was college football, and they had four TVs and four different rodeos. It was awesome. I loved it.
They weren't having the football; they were straight
Up
for the
there watching
rodeo.
the rodeo, local rodeos.
Yeah. Well, great. I'm glad you had a good time. I've been
Yeah,
out
we
there
did.
before, and it was like I was saying. I think on the phone, the weather had to have been ideal just to be able to see everything.
Oh,
It's probably green and lush.
yeah, blue sky every day, just incredible.
Yeah.
And we're up early risers, so we got up and went to places before people were there, and we spent some time, and then it kind of got crowded, so we moved on to the next place. The towns were great. Went to Sturgis, that was awesome.
Yeah. Did you get to go to Mount Rushmore?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. All right.
yeah.
Yeah, I was
Crazy
going to say
Horse.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, Crazy Horse. I thought was incredible. Just it's not governmentally run. It's just money, and one single guy who lived in a tent for I don't know how many years and met a woman that was going to help him, and then they had 10 kids, and it's just and those kids, some of those kids are still part of it. It's just neat,
Yeah.
cool stuff.
That is
You got to
cool.
do it young though.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw some people there that I knew they were going to be sore the next day. I'm knocking on the door of 60, but there were some people there that probably should have gone 10 years before. But it
Yeah.
was
Yeah, it is. I'm going to Colorado next week, so I'm excited about seeing the mountains and that stuff. So,
that's cool.
but let's get into some wrestling. So the preseason is obviously, getting started. We started up the podcast the last couple of weeks, and yeah, I think this would be a good time. I wanted to kind of get into starting to have some conversations that I think could help people in the area. Right. And to be honest, one of the reasons why I kind of started this whole process in the last couple of years is try to help grow wrestling, how to get people to be aware of the availability of wrestling, and then obviously to track and show the success of our local athletes. So, just kind of start off like, generally speaking, what do you think is the most important, like foundational thing that needs to be improved upon, because I don't want to assume that it's not being done, because it is obviously being done in some places. But what's the foundational starting blocks for growing wrestling in the area?
Well, 100%. It's a youth wrestling program. You need to develop a youth wrestling program. And when I developed the one at Hananiga, when I first got there back in like 1988 or whatever, there was no youth program. There were just kids coming out as freshmen in high school. And where I grew up in Northeast Iowa, wrestling was the hotbed. I mean, like Dan Gable would be at tournaments watching recruiting kids from Northeast Iowa. And I started wrestling in third grade. My grade school wrestling coach was the head wrestling coach my grade school our PE teacher was the head wrestling coach. So he had, everybody, and I wrestled. I went to practices and stuff, but by the time I was like sixth grade, I was wrestling every weekend during the winter. There's nothing else to do in Northeast Iowa. So,
well, thinking about the youth programs, I think, how do we, I was interested to have this conversation with you just because, Hananiga has been successful in developing a kids feeder program. And even I was talking to somebody today about it, and, they still have over 100 plus kids involved in it today. So it's still going strong. How do people get 100 plus kids involved every year?
Well, number one, there's kids that have wrestled for me now have kids, and then those people have friends, and those guys are talking to, hey, why don't we, just try wrestling and stuff like that. But in the beginning, I would go to football games and hand out flyers, and I would go talk to youth football programs and say, hey, you should do this. And then as we increased and we got kids who were better, then I would take some of the guys who were football players and wrestlers, and we'd go out to the Rockton Roscoe Lions football program, and they would talk to the kids, and then we'd hand out flyers and stuff like that. But a big part of it is the people that run it. And we've been very blessed that we've had great people run our youth program, starting with, I started it myself and didn't have any, it was a very small program, but then I had a great person, John Finnicle, Rob Finnicle's dad, who came around, and he ran the program for a long time. And then we just like the Schraders, Dick and Sherry Schrader helped start the wrestling tournament that they have, the youth tournament. And then you just go on and on and on and on. And now we got the Cassiopes that are running it. And the thing that people don't understand is they need to understand those Cassiopes don't have anybody in the kids program. They have all their kids are in high school now or in college or graduated, but they believe in the sport enough to give time and to do, and to give back. And I can't thank them enough for doing it, because it's very hard now to find people that will commit to organizing the practices, take care of the funding and everything. And they're very good at it. And if people are listening, it's a main reason why that program is still going the way it is.
Yeah.
And they got some pretty damn good kids, Cassiope kids. But it's just, you need help. You got to have people that believe in it.
Yeah. So good. You got to have a good group of committed individuals who can see the vision, and to be organized together in one kind of unit, right? How important is it for that program to kind of get led by the upper program, the high school program? What do you think about that? Like, how important is it to take guidance? And, one thing I think is something that can find its way in through the kids program is that there isn't really the clearest of communication always, and people don't always follow a specific leader. How important was it, or is it, for those youth programs to kind of be led by the upper program?
Well, first of all, the youth programs have to be overseen by the head wrestling coach. That head wrestling coach has to not always be there all the time, but has to be there. And then, like, when I started doing it, I would have some coaches that wanted to coach. I'm like, all right, we're going to do a clinic, though. I'm going to give you my philosophy of what I think, wrestling should be at Hananiga and how we can be successful. So then you get that, and it's just the trickle down effect every year, and I love there's nothing better than walking into the wrestling room during youth wrestling and seeing all the guys that wrestle for me. It's just the greatest thing in the world. It's like, oh, things do work, But you just gotta have communication. The head coach. There's sometimes like in a youth program, sometimes tough decisions have to be made. Sometimes it's the head coach that has to make that decision, or the person who is in charge. But the thing with us, we never really had an issue. When I said, this is how we're going to do it, everybody bought in, so it's good. But you need to have great communication between the youth program and the high school program. But there's a whole nother end to this, is that you need to go. What I was very good at is and the high school was great for me, is that they would let me come to their freshman PE classes. And it was before girls wrestling and women's wrestling. So I was basically just the guys that I would talk to. But like right now, if I was still the head coach, I'd talk to every freshman every freshman PE class and talk to them and tell them, you need to try this. If you're a football player, if you're whatever, if you're looking for a sport, it's not a sport where you're going to get cut. It's just that you cut yourself, basically, right? It just like, it doesn't work out for you. But there's so many kids in our program that never started until freshman in high school that if I wouldn't have gone and talked to them or talked to a PE class, they wouldn't have been out. And I could name a ton off that were state qualifiers and a few place winners. But yeah. What you got to do is you just got to get out there and sell the sport. And for some reason, I was a used car salesman, but it was wrestling.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to communicate why you think the sport is valuable, and people will, once they agree with you, they'll go out for it. If they don't agree with you, they won't go out for it. So you have to be pretty convincing.
Yeah.
At least
Kevin Sulliver sometime. I don't know if you know who Kevin Sulliver is, but he wrestled during the Brad Lynn era when we were really good in the 90s. It would have been like 97. He went on and played 4 years. It started all 4 years at NIU in football, started as a true freshman. They just beat Michigan this year, NIU.
Notre Dame.
Or Notre Dame, yeah. And Kevin's was a person that I would every day. I heard he wasn't going out for basketball as a freshman. Every day I'd go into the lunchroom and talk to him, and he goes, "Marty, it finally got to a point where I thought you were stalking me." But I'm just like, no, because I'm just like saying, you have Brad Lynn you can wrestle with, and it turned out great. He was a state qual. If there would have been a 215-pound weight class during that time, he would have been a state champ. I mean, he was one match away from place, and he weighed 205. I think to this day, he's still one of the best athletes to ever come out of Hononegah. Went to state in track and high hurdles, all state in football. I mean, he was a couple matches away from placing in state. It's just, I mean, you get those kind of guys. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, especially if you get some individuals to have success. Thinking about that, I wanted to talk about that because I firsthand, when I was able to coach at Hononegah, I was just, an assistant. So I kind of came in and just got to observe everything. But you noticed how beneficial success was. Success was attractive to people. And, I've seen that also when I went to, when I took over at Belvedere, where, as a co-op program where it's kind of, it wasn't at its highest levels, and it's a little bit less attractive. And, say for instance, Hononegah right now, where they're at and the capacity to kind of convert that success. How important was success and in the process of selling it to people in your experience?
Well, when I came, they hadn't won a dual meet in 3 years, this high school. So I remember in my first year, we won our first dual meets, and I was living with Mike Miller, who ended up being a very Hall of Fame basketball coach in the area. And he goes, "Well, how many guys were on the other team?" I said, "Well, that doesn't matter because we won because we had more forfeits than they did. We had a full team, and both of my first dual meets, I think both teams had like 10 kids on the team. So we won my first duels because we had forfeits. But you look at, you got to get success. And like the first year that I was at Hononegah, we never scored a point in the conference or regionals. Nobody won a match. So, there's not a lot of success there. But then I'm looking at myself going, well, these kids are young, and they can progress. And with the luck of everything that they did, they just, I don't know what the answer was. I just got lucky to be in a great place. I had some people tell me that wrestling would never be successful in Hononegah when I was young, and that pissed me off because when somebody tells me you can't do something, then I'm going to do it.
I know you've said this before, but like, you think of it as a snowball effect. Like what was the breakthrough year that you had where all of a sudden there were more kids showing up to practice. There were more people wanting to get involved and stuff like that.
The breakthrough year was in the late 90s. I mean, it took a while. I mean, it took a long while. I mean, I had kids like the Jason and John Crouch and the Oslins and they were all great, great wrestlers. But a lot of those guys started just during high school. But the true breakthrough was Brad Lynn win a state title. I mean, it truly was. I mean, he was like his senior year, he was a coach as well as a wrestler because he was so straight-minded. He knew it. So Brad Lynn in that era of the 90s, late 90s, there was a lot of success. There were kids going to state. There were kids doing stuff. You know, when Brad won a state title, because he was the first person to win a state title in any sport of anything in Hononegah. So it was a kind of a changing moment. And they just it just rolled and rolled and rolled and kept going. But back in the 90s, I mean, I had some just tough kids.
Well, that seems like one of the benefits of wrestling as opposed to other sports, right? In basketball, you could have a really standout basketball player, but it really doesn't transcend the program necessarily because the team could still lose. Where in wrestling, you can have, an undefeated state champion who's nationally ranked and everything, and that can really ignite like the interest in the sport or involvement in the activity. So I definitely I see it. That I think that is something that local programs, sometimes we don't know that one athlete could actually be something that changes the culture within a program. So there's a value in individual success that can kind of attract a lot of other people. Go ahead. Yeah.
One thing I have though is the true key though is to get out and sell your program and work hard at it. I was lucky. I was a single guy, young, went to every football game, went to every freshman football game. I'd stop by like after I did the weight room after high school or after school. After that, I'd go watch a little bit of freshman practice. I was just like, I was all in, totally all in. And then I met my wife, Marianne, and she was all in. So, I mean, like sometimes when somebody gets married or if they have a kid, things change. And I was lucky that I got married and everything was great. I had a kid. I still coached 10 years after my son was born. It's just that, and I had a great high school. I had a great environment. If I needed something, if they could do it, they would help me. They would help me get it. And then we had as the kids club started, it was just, from then on, it was magic. Yeah. It really was. It still is.
Yeah.
Because of the Cassiopes, it's still just a great program.
Yeah, it's going great. I want to transition though. The next area that I want to kind of embark on is to see your perspective as well, because you're a sports guy. You follow sports, you watch sports, and what do you think the current landscape is, or the current cultural acceptance of wrestling and martial arts is, and what is it different than it was, in those late 90s?
I think martial arts is a huge factor in wrestling. I mean, when I was in college after I got hurt, I went and did judo for 3 years, and it just anything that's, I hate to say this, but I'm gonna tell you point blank, anything that's combat I like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so as somebody who watches sports, like the fact that ESPN talks about wrestlers, like how do you think that is going to impact or is impacting the growth of wrestling, or what needs to happen to transition to? Because I guess my question is, at this point, you hear tons of professional football players talk about martial arts and MMA, and they idolize the people who are the champions. The champions happen to be wrestlers. Mm-hmm. You start to see these guys into martial arts, doing wrestling, right? Martial arts is like MMA is wrestling, just with punches, right? And what I'm curious about is, what is it going to take to get every single football player to want to wrestle? Because whether it's on the golf course or in the grocery store or somewhere, I see so many people come up to me and be like, "Oh, I wish I wrestled in high school." And it's like, how do we make people realize, or how do we break through to those individuals? Like I said, talking about Hananiga, there's a couple brothers who are, offensive linemen or something like that.
They're monsters.
Yeah. And it's like, these guys need wrestling to be able to go to the NFL.
Right.
So how do we do that?
Well, it's very simple. You got to go out. It is. It's a simple thing. You go to football practice. You talk to them. You see them in the hallway. Oh my God, you need to wrestle this year. Just look at the professional football players that have been wrestlers, and look and on and on and on. I never shut my mouth in the hallway. Yeah. I mean, I would see a big kid. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, you gotta sell the sport, and like you're talking about MMA and stuff like it. The only way MMA has become successful is because of the wrestlers.
Yeah,
wrestling is probably the first martial arts sport there ever was.
Yeah.
Because I mean, back in the when they wrestled at
once two people were born, children wrestle. I see boys and girls, I see brothers and sisters. They just grab each other and they wrestle. It's like, oh, there it is.
It is, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just. But I mean, you know what? You also got to have. So I've always said this a million times, that a person and parents who have never wrestled before are going to go to their kids someday and go, hey, have you ever thought about wrestling? No, because you don't see it on TV as much. It's gotten way better. But they'll be like, oh, maybe you should try basketball or track, or you should try tennis or football or whatever. But the people who have wrestled and believe in it are diehard recruiters as far as parents and stuff like that. But you see what's on TV. You don't see wrestling that much, but you get the Big Ten Plus and ESPN Plus. This is a poke for both these programs, but ESPN Plus and Big Ten Plus cover wrestling like I've never seen. It's one of the greatest things there is.
Yeah.
I still wish there would be some more. Every once in a while they show some really good high school football programs playing each other. Wouldn't it be great, like on ESPNU, to have a high school duel of two really good teams, like in Illinois, since Illinois is a great state of wrestling? It'd be awesome. Or anything. I mean, but you still have to see it and believe it. And with the girls and the women wrestling now, it's making strides like unbelievable. You know what though? You still got to have numbers though to be successful in a program. You got to have a lot of people, and you got good numbers means you have good wrestlers that have workout partners.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to. I mean, it definitely is beneficial because it's like when there's not that many numbers, it's real easy for people to jump ship because it's not as. Again, there is something to it. I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder when I thought about like the low numbers. Going into my junior, senior season in high school, there were not very many kids on the team.
You still had a full team, though. You still had full varsity.
Yeah, I think we probably did, but maybe not my senior year. But either way, it was going. Numbers weren't great. But what I'm saying is, I personally didn't care. It didn't bother me. I actually liked being alone as opposed to being with the team. That's what attracted me to wrestling. But what do you think about like how do you? I guess so. Wrestling is very passionate. That's a really good word to. So when you become a wrestler, you become very passionate about wrestling. Do you think that there is a downfall as to how quick we require people to be like overly passionate about like the grind?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you can't just throw them into the grind. You can't. They got to learn that themselves. There's certain things in wrestling that a coach can't do. There's certain things in wrestling that only the athlete can do. If that person, there's the deepest, darkest moments in wrestling is when you're on your own and you're by yourself and you think, and it makes you such a better person. I mean, because like back when I was in high school, I mean, cutting weight and stuff, we had no stationary bikes. We had nothing. I had a jump rope, and I'd have to jump down in the basement with a shower running and stuff like that. But you just, and we had, I mean, there was a custodian at my school. This is honestly, I don't know. I think he passed away a couple of years ago. But every morning behind the school, he put a sock in the door so I could come in and run. Like, because they didn't want kids in there till like 7 in the morning or 6:30 or whatever. Well, I came in at like 5:30 or 6 because it was pitch ass dark in Iowa or anywhere. So, and he'd put that sock in the door, and the door would open. I'd put all my stuff on, and I'd run through the whole school, which wasn't very big. But yeah, it's just you gotta, there's certain things in life you have to do on your own to be successful, and wrestling's one of them. You have to do stuff on your own to make you better. You don't have to be with the team. You don't have to be on the field. You could be.
But so I guess
whatever.
I guess one of my thoughts is, and I think we've talked about this before, but I kind of want to rehash it or bring it up again. But in wrestling, we don't really have like a tryout aspect to it, right? Like once you join wrestling, you're committing to 5 days of hard practice, right? The hardest practice that you probably ever had.
I was thinking 6 days if we weren't wrestling on Saturday.
Okay. You could say 6 days, right? So you're committing to 6 days in one of the most grinding, grueling activities, right? And say you're on one of those good teams, you have to now you sink or swim, right? And so do you think that there's any way to create like introductory or like change how we approach the JV, if you will, as opposed to bringing everybody in to the gauntlet?
Yeah, well, you saw it last year when we were at Honega for like one of the first practices of the year. There was the varsity and the really good wrestlers, and then there was the other kids, and they were probably 1 year, maybe 2 years of wrestling, or just beginners. You cannot just take a human being and throw them in and just let them get beat up. They won't last. I learned that from day one. Back when I was there, we had 3 different stages of wrestling you had to work your way through. And how you worked your way through it is we had wrestle-offs every Monday. So if somebody wanted to wrestle off against so-and-so for the weight class, let's say you're on a freshman team, but I want to wrestle some JV or I want to wrestle some sophomore. We're like, all right, wrestle off. And we would, as soon as practice was over with, we'd run wrestle offs. And if you won, you moved up the ladder. If you didn't, you still stayed down. And it was crazy how many kids, like how things got really close as the year went on. Like this young freshman or this kid who was only wrestled for 2 years, man, he closed the gap. He must have been working a little bit harder. But yeah, it's, the greatest thing about wrestling, you don't have to decide who the team is. They decided themselves. Wrestle-offs.
Well, I just think back to like wrestling for me. One of the largest things that motivated me to become infatuated with like the grind was the idea of becoming a state champion. And so I just think of so many kids that go, oh yeah, I'll try out for wrestling because my friend wants to try out for wrestling. And then, 2 weeks in, they're like, what are we doing here? Where because they don't have that ulterior motive, they don't have that thing, that object that will make them, wake up early and go to bed late just thinking of it. I'm just curious if there's, how do you keep that kid? Because I think, what I'm realizing, I've seen so many people get into martial arts later on in life, right? So that they never wrestled growing up. They didn't do martial arts growing up, but as they get older and become, specifically talking about men, but as men become like older, they go, man, I want to feel strong for my family. I want to feel strong for myself. I want to be able to protect myself.
Or how about just to defend yourself?
Yeah.
If you get into a situation.
Yeah. Defending yourself, protect yourself. Right. And then they get into it later on. Well, what type of talent did they have that they didn't get to actualize when they were kids? And it's like, how do we lend I'm curious about it for so many kids that might not have that goal that makes them go after something. How do you keep them engaged with torture, basically?
Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah, well, it's not the way that you perceive it is how you view it, right?
But here's the thing, though, Dalton. So if a kid comes in as like a true freshman or whatever, only had like a year of wrestling, they're not going to grind.
Yeah.
They're going to find a friend who's the grinder. And then the friend's going to say, hey, why don't you come up and work out with me in the mornings? We're not going to wrestle. We're just going to lift. We're going to run, do whatever. That's how that trickle down effect starts. And then all of a sudden you're like, you come walking in, I come walking in the morning. I'm like, a few more guys in the wrestling room, and it's just through that, the person who's good at it, trying to realize that, hey, I need workout partners. Plus they're my best friends. Why don't we hang out and wrestle and, and then talk about it later as I go, and you know what? We got up at 5 o'clock this morning. We worked our asses off. We did all this, we did all that. And these kids are barely can make it to school.
I think that's a good realization about how crucial it is to actually empower the kids who are the leaders on the team to go out and recruit for you, because you can sit in the hallway and ask kids all day long,
right.
But when another kid appears, somebody who is, I think you did mention this, like if you get a popular kid who's in wrestling, a good popular kid, they can get a lot of kids out for wrestling.
Well, can they ever? Yeah, and that's what Kevin Sullivan was. That's what Brad Lynn was. That's like, just I can name on and on and on guys that would go talk to people and stuff. Yeah. But again, I still think it all starts. I mean, every once in a while, a kid might go home and go, hey, Mom, I just got this pamphlet. I want to wrestle. But usually it becomes from a family that has been part of wrestling or whatever. But at Hondiga, in the beginning, it wasn't because nobody wrestled.
Yeah, I think we touched on a lot of stuff today. What do you think about what we're doing with Northern Illinois Wrestling, and like what could we do that you think would be fun to kind of continue to grow the community wrestling in, specifically, I have a layout that I will introduce at some point as to like what I think Northern Illinois Wrestling is as far as right now is. But how do you see that happening with what we're up to?
I think it's I just think it's one of the most unique, greatest things there is. When you came up with this idea, and I think people need to realize that we just come and talk. It's like we're that passionate about the sport. I mean, even though I'm retired and I'm getting older, I still love the sport. I think it's great for people and parents who have never wrestled and have their kids involved in wrestling. It's great for them to listen to it. And like you said, we go live. There's actually could be questions asked, and we could answer questions for people. And, it's just it's great. I mean, it's, it's something that I never thought would ever happen.
Yeah.
And you did it. I mean, with you doing it, Dalton, I'm just a guy that my wife helps me set up every night and everything, but your technology and your knowledge and stuff like that, it's great. I mean, it's awesome. It's gonna. I mean, the people ask me like, when's the podcast start again? And I'm like, oh, it's coming up soon. When people say that, they're a follower. It doesn't have to be 500,000 followers. I don't care. As long as anybody's out there listening and learning from it, it's awesome.
Yeah. And just, again, reiterating, one of the goals is always just to shine a light on who's doing the right things, right? Like,
right.
I think you and I can agree to the idea that the reason why we love wrestling is the individual journey that people go on when they commit to trying to like do really well at it. They have to put a lot of hard work in it and dedication, and it cultivates personalities that you and I probably prefer. We probably prefer people who have these types of personalities as opposed to people who don't. And so we appreciate the process that wrestling creates. And so with that, we want to shine a light on those who are going through the grind, who are going through the journey, because they're our local warriors. And I appreciate them because I did it and it was very hard. And to do it well, to be successful, I know what it takes to do. And I have admiration for those people. So, yeah, I mean, you can speak to that, I guess. But
you're like you're the perfect example of somebody who grinded their way through and actually became an All-American and went to multiple different programs in college, have a college degree, and you are an All-American, and you're in the Hall of Fame at Elmhurst,
Yeah,
right?
I
Yeah,
am.
where you are. I mean, people don't understand. Sometimes I think we should introduce ourselves and let them know what our background is. Everybody knows Dalton, but everybody just thinks I'm just a crazy old man that comes on.
Well, let's be honest. You are a crazy old man now, Marty.
Yeah. But I mean, you're the perfect example of grinding, and you would go anywhere to work out.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think I look back and I think that the journey is the thing that I'm encouraging people to take. You know, I trust that like no matter, it's never perfect, right? It's almost impossible to be perfect, but through it, you get to you learn a lot about yourself and what you're capable of, and you'll grow up like everybody else and move on to kind of different things, but ultimately that experience kind of like pushes you into that next phase or whatever. But
yeah, it kind of makes you successful in life.
Yeah, at least
time it does.
At least it gives you the framework to kind of work from. What is success, in life is other than like, I think just your ability to like approach life,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, things are good and life is good. And I'm glad that we're doing this. It's good to be able to connect with a lot of people and try to like, never in the past did it seem like there was really networks of people working together. And I think now, one of the biggest goals that I have this year for the entire, platform or brand or whatever it is just to consistently connect with more and more coaches and programs to kind of shine a light on those programs as much as we can so that those things can grow. And then, through osmosis, everything spreads like wildfire. And then in Northern Illinois, everybody's kid goes out for wrestling.
Right.
That would be an amazing accomplishment in 5 years from now.
I mean, there's the thing with the not Northern Illinois, but our conference or whatever. There's some very good kids coming this year. I mean, there's kids in our conference that are going to be state place winners. We could have some state champions. It's just going to be I think it's going to be a great year. Just I think if everybody can get the numbers out, it'd be awesome if we get it. But I mean, yeah, Hononegah's got a chance to be very, very, very competitive, and it's awesome. And they're good kids too. They're successful and they're good and multiple sport athletes and stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry that I always say Hononegah, but
I think the people know that you're a Hononegah fan, number one fan, in fact.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's your job.
But I'm anybody else that's good, I'm gonna recognize them. I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm gonna get ready and post one of the videos this week of all the local athletes that did well at the state tournament last year, and kind of get the thing going with
get the vibe going.
Yeah, man. And because there's a lot of returning state qualifiers and state placers from the area, Oregon, Byron, Lena, Hononegah, obvioly, and East had a lot of guys.
Dakota's got to have a couple guys coming, right?
Yeah, they definitely had a state champ, 3-time state champ last year, but he's gone. So there's a lot to catch up on. There's a lot to look forward to. I think this year is going to be fun for the fan as far as like paying attention and being able to connect all the tournaments and see how things are unfolding. A lot better than they were last year. We only could do so much last year. This year, I've got a lot in store as far as plans, so I'm looking forward to that.
So what you're saying is like if I'm in Florida or I'm in like Vegas, we can still broadcast a meet, right?
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking into, just to give the listeners, whoever's listening, a little sneak peek, is to increase the broadcasting component where Marty, myself, Dan, McNames, and anyone else kind of comes together. We can create a little bit more of a, I guess you could say, product,
right?
A broadcasting product, so we can kind of talk about wrestling a little bit easier, learn about the athletes a little bit easier, learn about the programs and what's to expect from that stuff a little easier. And yeah, that's one of the positives to social media and the internet. There's, all sorts of technology have pros and cons. One of the pros is definitely being able to connect everyone so much
Right.
easier and kind of get things going. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
All right, Marty. Well, I'm glad we got a chance to do this.
Hey, wait. One more thing. So
All right.
what'd you shoot today?
I shot 73 on the golf course.
Was it like a putt or what? Where was it?
I shot 73 at Atwood from the Blues.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, not kidding.
So you people, if anybody's listening, you have no clue how long it is to play from the Blues at Atwood.
Well,
and shoot a 73.
Yeah, it was a great day. I have a phenomenal swing instructor, my coach, my personal swing coach, Marty Kaiser. She got me tuned up in the beginning of the year, and I've just kind of grinded and worked on it. And yeah, I'm really close.
Did you play with the old guys?
No, I've been playing with a individual who's a golfer. He's just a golfer. I don't know. He golfed in high school. He's like 6'2", hits the ball about 315. I mean, shoots in the low 70s every time. So I've got a good group of like competitive guys that have helped me like really push my abilities. So yeah, it's been good.
You should have played the Winnebago County next year.
Next year we're gonna do it, Marty.
I'll caddy up with you.
Next year, I this is a great place to think about talking about. A lot of people wanted or suggested I should play this year, and I said, I don't know if I want to play because I can't see myself winning, so I don't really know the point. And I spent all of this year focusing on really developing a game that I feel like is capable of putting together a score that could actually compete at that tournament.
Yeah, so if you go to MacTown, you might want to hit your driver maybe twice. We'll work on that.
Yeah, but either way, it's getting to the point where I have a lot more confidence. So when we tee it up next year at the county, I'm going to play. I'm playing to win. I'm playing to compete with the best, and yeah, that's just how I've always been wired. I don't want to just go compete for fun. I want to compete.
Right. Yeah. Some of those guys are there to compete for fun, but there's also guys there that want to win the damn thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I mean, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Let me know.
We will. All right, Marty. Thanks again. We'll touch base soon. See ya.
You got it.